Welcome back to the OHSU Effect. Good morning. We want to turn our attention now to a comprehensive program up at OHSU that focuses on child sex abuse. Dr. Thomas Valvano is medical director of the Suspected Child Abuse and Neglect Program at OHSU Dornbecker Children's Hospital. He's also an assistant professor of pediatrics in the OHSU School of Medicine. Dr. Valvano provides medical evaluations of suspected victims of child abuse or neglect who've been admitted to Dornbecker and manages the delicate interaction between families, the Department of Human Services, and police. He is board certified in child abuse pediatrics and is a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics section on child abuse and neglect, and he joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we want to be clear here. We're talking about child sex abuse. So what are the signs and symptoms of abuse, and what should parents watch for?
So the most obvious sign would be a statement made by the child saying that somebody has touched them or done something to them. And whenever a child makes a concerning statement like that, we recommend that parents always take it seriously and listen carefully and don't ignore those statements or assume that they're misunderstood, that the child misunderstood, or those are innocent statements. But children often don't disclose for a number of reasons, because they're confused or afraid, because they've been threatened by the abuser, or because they feel like it's their fault and they're going to get into trouble if they tell about it. So you have to look for other signs that aren't always as specific, but indicate something is happening in the child's life. And those signs would include a change in their school performance, a child who's doing poorly in school all of a sudden, a change in appetite, the child becoming withdrawn or depressed, not socializing with the family, not socializing with their friends. Those signs could indicate any number of things in addition to sexual abuse, but they do indicate to a parent that something's wrong and that they really need to look at that what's going on with that child more closely.
Yes, if a child does confide that he or she has been abused or touched inappropriately, what should parents do first?
So the most important thing is to listen carefully and take it seriously. Let the child know that it is okay for them to disclose this information to you and that it's not their fault. They're not responsible for what this adult may have done. And that's the most important thing.
And then I'm assuming call police next, or what are the steps here?
Yeah, so once the child has made a statement, it's important to make a report, and that can be done in a number of ways. Certainly one place to start is by calling your pediatrician, but a report to the Child Protective Services hotline. Every county in Oregon has a Department of Human Services Child Protective Services hotline, and a report can be made there or to the police. Our system is that when a report is made to one agency, they cross-report to another. So if you call the police, they will call DHS, and if you call DHS, they will call police.
Is there something that a parent should not do?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that a parent shouldn't do. They shouldn't give the child an indication that they're not being believed. So statements like, "Are you sure that happened?" or "Could you have misunderstood?" or "Maybe so-and-so didn't really mean it that way." Anything that suggests that the child isn't being believed or is wrong is going to cause that child to withdraw, not make further disclosures, and sometimes even retract the statements that they've already made, making it very difficult for us to know what really happened to that child.
You know, sex abuse has been in the news a lot lately, especially with Coach Joe Paterno, and Sandusky over at Penn State. So let's kind of go more in depth here. What is the profile of a sexual predator, and how do they gain the trust of their victims?
So we want to think that most of these sexual predators are the people who pull up to the sidewalk in a van or the people who leap out from behind a bush in the park. But the truth is that most children are victimized by people who are known to them and their families and not by strangers. The vast majority of sexual abusers are members of the child's family, friends, relatives, neighbors. They are people who have access to children, like teachers, coaches, daycare providers, coaching assistants, who have a regular contact and access to a child and the ability to build a relationship and target a child.
Are there signs in a relationship that parents should look for if that adult is spending too much time with the child, or
Yes.
what?
So an adult who seem to be paying an inordinate amount of time, attention to a particular child, giving that child special gifts, wanting to be alone with that child, for example, taking the child out on special outings that person isn't doing with other children that they know, other members of the team, for example, or other members of the family, wanting to isolate that child and spend an unusual amount of time alone with the child, that should be a red flag to a parent.
How do medical professionals determine whether a child has been abused or neglected?
So in Oregon, our counties each have children's centers that are designed to evaluate children for abuse or neglect. And those centers are staffed by medical professionals who are trained in doing examinations of children, as well as interviewers who are trained in how to talk to children about these issues and get accurate and reliable statements from children.
What is the recommended treatment here?
In most cases, we recommend professional counseling with a therapist who is experienced with children and has experience dealing with issues around sexual abuse. I think there's sometimes a tendency for parents to want to put this behind them as quickly as possible, pretend that it never happened, pretend that everything is okay, and go forward. But what happens is if children don't have an opportunity to talk about what happened with someone who can give them a perspective and a framework for dealing with it, these issues are going to come up at some point later for these kids and going to affect them down the road, most commonly when they're teenagers.
Well, yeah, that leads me to my next question about long-term health effects. What can parents expect there? What have you seen?
There are significant long-term effects from abuse, including sexual abuse, particularly if it's left untreated. And those effects include problems with school performance, mental and emotional health problems such as depression and anxiety. They include risk-taking behaviors such as drug use, alcohol use, and engaging in risky sexual activity or engaging in criminal behavior. And it can affect a child's ability as an adult to engage in a healthy emotional relationship or emotional long-term relationship with a partner.
Well, let's talk about parents and how they can prevent this. What should they be doing proactively?
So the most important thing is to have conversations with your children around issues of sexual abuse and just sexual development. And it's not a conversation that you just have one time with your child. It should be an ongoing dialogue that's appropriate to their age and developmental stage. So as they get older, the discussion's going to change slightly. But that lets the child know that it's okay to talk about these issues with the parent. It's important for parents to let their children know that keeping secrets from the parent is not okay. And if someone is asking the child to keep a secret, that's not okay, and they should let the parent know that. And it's important for children to understand that they have the right to expect privacy around their body. And if they don't want someone to touch a part of their body, that they have that right to say no.
What kind of resources are out there that are available to parents or family members to help them recognize these signs of abuse?
So the American Academy of Pediatrics has a website called healthychildren.org, and on that website you can download parent tips for preventing and recognizing sexual abuse in children. Your pediatrician is also a very good resource for these questions, including questions about how to talk to your children about these issues, as is your school and the Department of Human Services Child Protection Centers.
So basically, don't be afraid to ask. This shouldn't be something that parents are embarrassed about.
Exactly.
That's great. And of course, all this information is also going to be on the OHSU Effect page on KXL.com. Dr. Thomas Valvano, Medical Director of the Suspected Child Abuse and Neglect Program at OHSU Dornbecker Children's Hospital. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And coming up next on the OHSU Effect, we will tell you about Brain Awareness Season. That's in 5 minutes on FM News 101 KXL.